Welcome to the Thinc Conversation series, where we explore issues shaping South Africa. I'm Lucky Mathebula from the Thinc Foundation. I am in conversation with South Africans. I talk to influencers. This is more than a conversation. It's a thought-provoking engagement for the nation ready for the next 30 to 50-year takeoff. Today, we are still with Professor Ngcaweni, and we're still exploring the subject of public service. I'm joined by Professor Ngcaweni, the immediate past principal of the School of Government. He is now at the University of Joburg. Like I said the last time, he's an author and he's doing a lot in the subject. Now, we ended up on the C-suite conversation the last time we spoke. But when we did that, what would you think constitute a C-suite in our public service? I'm asking you this because our Constitution takes the executive authority and gives it to politicians. And there is no executive authority that is lying with the appointed officials. And these appointed officials are actually there for a longer term than the politicians. Now, what constitutes our C-suite in the country, given this thing of some people come in for 5 years with the executive authority, others stay for 10 years, they don't have the executive authority?
Well, thanks again for inviting me. Firstly, there is no perfect legal jurisdiction in the world that crystally define and these lines between those who are elected and those who are appointed. It's largely been culture and practice that has sharpened their ability to work, together in an effective way. Recently I was spent a month at Oxford in an executive leadership program. I was with ministers and DGs from 18 different countries in the world. And it's interesting, some of them are coming from advanced economies. Some of them are dealing with similar issues of relationships between DGs and their ministers as we do here in South Africa. Of course, the law is important. The PFMA gives certain authorities to accounting officers, that is clear. The Public Service Act does something different, and there are amendments that are taking place there. But let me say this, even if you were to align the Public Service Act together with the PFMA, and you delegate some of these crystal clear to the heads of departments, that will not be the end of the problems. What I think we need to do, of course, fix the law. We need to build the capability at leadership level, both elected and administrative, to be able to navigate the terrain and to manage the contradictions, because some of the tensions are permanent. You must have an ability to manage those things. The first contradiction is that public servants, even the Constitution says they must loyally execute the legal mandate of the government of the day. That presupposes that they are able to manage the first tension, their ability to interpret what that mandate is. And what it means. In many cases, the clash is around that, even before there are personalities. So to rebuild the C-suite, as it were, it's about clarifying the laws, but also building the confidence and capability of those in the C-suite to navigate the contradictions, the dynamics. More so now that we are in the coalition environment and GNU and so on. When you've clarified that, you limit a possibility of there being a clash. Secondly, I think there has to be, this thing of building trust is not a sole responsibility of elected politicians. We as public servants have an equal responsibility to build the confidence and trust with those with whom we work and to execute. Thirdly, it's about clarifying the fact that the minister or the mayor set the agenda and the strategy, and that I will execute that. And that you must manage me on the basis of what I have promised that I will do for you. If I said, I'm going to build 10 combi courts, that's a compact between me and you that I'm going to build the combi courts. Of course, there might be challenges in the process of building that, and I must be able to come back. There must be a feedback loop so that I don't surprise you. tomorrow that well we couldn't because of the following. And then fourthly, which is an imperative in this system, politicians are politicians. They are political animals. The top bureaucrats in a department must know that this is a political animal. You need to be able to support it in this responsibility they have, including all the pressure points. They may come from a party where they are expected to deliver certain things at a particular time and space. When you appreciate that and you are supporting that, we are able to build this confidence because they know that this thing is reciprocal. And without getting into the politics, but you understand the pressure points. Many of us ignore the pressure points of the politicians, and that is the genesis of the failure of the relationship. Of course, lastly, I must say this, with due respect to politicians, I've worked greatly with them. I've never had problems with politicians except for one, and I nearly had to pull in Okapi on this one politician.
I don't want to know who's that.
But the point I'm making is that we must not have a low opinion of those who are in political leadership, regardless of the fact that they may have been our juniors at school, they may have been our colleagues sitting next to us, or they may have just been a lay councillor somewhere. We mustn't have that low opinion. We must support and build their ability to provide strategic leadership in the department, in the municipality, and so on. That applies even to board chairpersons, because sometimes you've got someone with a wealth of experience as a CEO, or even as a manager of a municipality, and you know that the people who are in the mayoral committee or people who are in the board are 10 steps behind you. In order for them to be effective, look at where they are, provide support to them, draw some clear lines as to what you expect of them based on their mandates as well as the imperatives as defined in law as well as through the political system. Of course, there must be maturity also on the side of politicians.
But, Professor, you know, the late Professor Ngcaweni, a great scholar in institution development and whatever. Professor Ngcaweni writes about bureaucratic discretion. He decries that what we have in South Africa has been the death of bureaucratic discretion, and death as in DE, yeah, and that death of bureaucratic discretion, Professor Musha says it has impacted on the ability of people who are expecting to be the C-suite to use their discretion in a way that implements what the political mandate fully understood is supposed to be. How do we manage? Is it something that needs reform? You are busy in the reform process now of the public management bill and whatever way it's trying to deal with this dichotomy. What are the reforms to deal with this thing? Because it's a big thing.
Well, he was correct, and I deal with it by periodizing it. I'll say, I mean, give or take, in the first 10 years of the democratic governance in South Africa, you must look at the type of ministers you had, the cabinet, I mean, including in provinces, as well as the type of the DGs that you have. If you were to just do a basic profile of who they are and where they came from. And that will tell you why they were able to make very significant breakthroughs because of the relationship, the trust. Some of them were together in prison or exile, and they tended to be most senior. And also with this class of politicians during that time who were still very much driven by this ethos of liberation and so on. Then in the second decade of democracy, somewhere in between, you begin to then have what Prof. Kondo is characterizing. That's a point at which, for a variety of reasons, including rising expectations from society as well as factionalism in the political system, you begin to see the political class that want to now take the steering wheel of delivery in state institutions. Some of them, they thought if by doing so, they will press the accelerator and delivery will happen much faster. We are also beginning to have people who do not necessarily have some kind of a common culture or heritage politically, that is where they are starting to interpret and reinterpret, each other. And then in the third one, of course, the situation was worse at that particular time. And some of you commenting outside will be asking, who is this DG? Who is this MM? Who is this CEO? And who is this chair? Precisely because the dynamics that are taking place in the labor market, but in the state in general, are such that you may have two individuals who've never met before. They meet for the first time when we are now a minister and we are now a DG, MM, and so on. But as this erosion is happening for a variety of reasons. One is because sometimes they felt that the administration was slow, so they were taking away the discretion and then they were imposing themselves. Sometimes these are people who didn't have much confidence themselves. Sometimes because this bureaucrat knew too much and they felt undermined by them. Sometimes because there were also other nefarious reasons, because they needed to be able to direct, procurement decisions, and so on. So that change, you can periodize it over this period of time. As I'm saying, fix the law first, which is important as it is taking place now with PAMA as well as the Public Service Act, and align with the PFMA and clarify those roles and responsibilities. But the war will not end unless you fix what I call soft institutions. Soft institutions, which is how you navigate the relationship, how you build trust, how I understand you as my minister, what you want to achieve, as a politician, and that I mustn't turn you into a celebrity. Of course, if that's what you want, I may hire a social media person to click, and so on. And then by doing this, at least we establish common ground as what do we expect of each other? What am I capable of doing? And I must come to you and say, Minister, actually, maybe you actually need to have this type of an advisor. Maybe, Minister, this is what you need to have, or this is how I'm going to support you. I will pull one or two resources in the department, and this is how they are going to provide support to you. Let's take a board. As a CEO, you have the profile of the people appointed by a cabinet, national or province, or in a metro to be a board. That on the profile, these people don't cut it. They have been legally appointed. What do you do as a CEO with a company secretary? You must take steps to induct them, to empower them, to train them. So you reach a point where, as a board member, we're expected to implement duty to care, skill, and diligence. Duty to care, skill, and diligence can be built. So as a CEO, you must now be proactive, because politicians have made this decision and giving you this board.
Now,
and build that duty to care, skill, and diligence. It then manages the tensions at least.
Just there, we will be back with more on the Thinc Conversations.